Hey, welcome back, Friendship Small Groups. I'm glad you guys are back together again. Thanks for sticking with us. We are in the book of Galatians, and I think we're pretty much right at about the halfway point through the book of Galatians. And so thanks for sticking with us, and I hope we continue with this. So let's keep rolling. Today we are in Galatians chapter 3. We're looking at verses 15 to 22. And Paul kind of goes on a rant a little bit. He kind of goes on a little side quest here where he is ranting and going on about the laws and the promise and covenants and what in the world does all of this have to do with Jesus. Well, we're going to briefly explain it here, but come on Wednesday and we're going to dive much deeper into this. And so I want to explain to you some of what these major covenants in the Bible are because it helps explain this section of Scripture. And so we see in the Old Testament, or in the whole Bible really, we see 5 major covenants. There's a lot of other little covenants with people and nation with nation, but there's 5 major covenants that God gives us in the Bible. The first one would be the Noahic covenant. If you've ever heard this term, you might have heard the guy Noah, right? This is when God flooded the earth. He destroyed the whole world. His wrath came out, and he destroyed and wiped out all of humans except for 8 and restarted with Noah. But then he gives a sign in the sky that he would never do that again. That would be the sign of the rainbow. So that's the Noahic covenant. Then we have, after the Noahic covenant, we have the Abrahamic covenant. This is with a guy named Abraham, right? We've been talking about him for the last few weeks. You guys kind of understand a little bit about Abraham. This was a promise, a covenant, a promise that God would bring about this great nation. You could be part of God's family, and that God would give them a land, a place to be. That was part of the Abrahamic covenant. And so then after the Abrahamic covenant, we see the Mosaic covenant. The Mosaic covenant was with a guy named Moses. And so after Abraham, 430 years later, Israel finds themselves slaves in Egypt. And so God delivers them from Egypt. You probably remember the story. There's 10 plagues. There's the parting of the Red Sea. Pharaoh chases them, drowns in the ocean. You guys remember that whole story. And so then after they are freed from slavery, God gives them this Mosaic covenant. He tells Moses to go up on Mount Sinai. He gives them the law, and he comes down and he tells the people, this is the law. If you keep it, it is for blessing. If you ignore it, it is for cursing. And so that's the law. We looked a little bit about this last week at youth group. And so that's the Mosaic covenant. Then after the Mosaic covenant, we see the Davidic covenant. This is with a guy named David, King David. You guys remember David and Goliath, right? That's King David. When David was the king of Israel, God gave him this covenant, this promise that he would have a king come after him in his lineage that would last forever, that there would be an everlasting kingdom, an everlasting throne, that his descendant would rule and reign forever. And that we know as Jesus. And so that's the Davidic covenant. Then we see the last one that's in the Bible. This is the 5th and final major covenant that God gives us. This is what we call the faith covenant or the new covenant. And maybe you've heard it that way. This is the new covenant. This is what Jesus gives us. He brings it, delivers it to us. It is the faith covenant. And that if we believe in Jesus, he is the fulfillment of all of the other covenants. That his covenant, this faith covenant, is the final one, and it's forever. It's everlasting. And so if we trust and believe in him, he fulfills all these others, and we can be with him forever. So we're going to dive into that a lot deeper on Wednesday. Come then, we're going to learn about it. But here's the big idea for this week. God keeps his promises. God always keeps his promises. He is faithful. And through all of these covenants, all the people, the humans, we all break our covenant. People have broken their covenants with God, their promises all the time. But God is the one who is faithful, and he never breaks the promises. So that's the big idea. Here's your couple questions for your small group time. Question number 1 is this. Have you ever made a promise that you didn't keep? All right, I think we've all been there. I think we've all had times like this where we made a promise about something to someone, but it didn't happen. We broke our covenant. We broke our promise. Okay, so what was that like for you? Go around the room and share that with your group. Question number 2 is this. Because God is faithful and because God does always keep his promises, what promise of God do you hold on to the most? That you cling to? It means a lot to you. What is that promise for you? So go around, have a great group time, have a good discussion time, and I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. See you guys.